Okay, it's 8:05. Good morning, everyone. I think we're good to start. Let's do this. So thanks everyone for joining, especially Punit. He is our mentor for the day, and he'll be running us through a few important aspects of a day in the life of a data scientist and more. So without any further ado, I would want to give it over to Punit, and it'll be great if you can start with a small introduction, just in case somebody is seeing you for the first time. Okay, thanks a lot. Over to you, Punit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So good morning, everybody. I see a lot of familiar names. A lot of people would know me already, but all I know is we'll start with the introduction for sure. So good morning, all. Thank you for joining at the early hours of Sunday. I hope I can make it worth of your time. So let's get started without any further delay. I think people will join in the media time, right? All right, let's get started. I hope you can see my screen and you can hear me well. Is there any issues in that stuff before we begin? Can everybody see my screen and can hear me well? Perfect. Thank you so much, guys, for confirming that one. So the topic today that we are going to discuss is all about what a day looks like in the life of a data scientist, right? What do they do, how it works, and so forth, right? Let's get started then. I'm sure everybody of you have heard the word data scientist, right? You all are getting, prepared for jumping into that particular industry, right? But who exactly is data scientist? I mean, we are learning about it, definitely, but who is this guy? I mean, what does he do, right? And how their general work life looks like, right? There are a lot of hypes around it. There are a lot of different views and perspective that you will get to hear because the role is so dynamic. But I'll try to give you a glimpse that how generally the day looks like in the life of a data scientist, right? What you're gonna hear for next couple of hours would be the experiences that I have had, right? So let's get started with that part. But before we do that, it's important to understand who I am, right? A lot of you already know me because I see a lot of familiar names of who I have taught earlier. So my name is Punit Shah. I'm based out of Pune, Maharashtra. Currently, I'm working in the capacity of specialist in a company called Synchron Innovation Lab, that is Synchron Technologies. If I talk about my experience, I have 9+ or close to 10 years of experience in the world of IT, consulting, technologies, delivering, right? 4+ years I have been working with Oracle earlier, okay? And recently, I mean, not recently, but 3-4 years, I have been working with Synchron in the world of consulting, data strategies, data services, which primarily involves AI, ML, RPA, and that stuff. If you ask about the domain that I have worked for, it's primarily banking and financial institutions. That's the domain I have been associated with from the very beginning of my career. Even I was with Oracle, the client that I worked for was the larger banks. And even with Synchron, it's almost the banks, the financial institutions, the insurance companies, and so forth. Right. I'm also a trainer and a speaker, so I take trainings on a variety of topics, not only the Python, AI, and ML. I also take a lot of trainings and workshops for the different tools like Ultrix, Data IQ, Power BI, ClickSense, and so forth. If you want to connect with me, I'm pretty much happy to do that. That's my LinkedIn profile. I think a lot of you are already connected to me on LinkedIn, but I'm happy to connect with everyone here. Right. So that's a brief introduction about me. I think if anyone is interested in more, we can go and talk about it. But that's pretty much what I have been doing, what is my background, and so forth. Right. So generally, this particular session is divided into few questions. Okay. And using these questions, we will try to get into the nerves of what does a data scientist generally do in his day-to-day life. Right? So the very first question that might come to my mind is, what are the business problems generally a data scientist will solve? But now that's a very bigger, or I can say, an open-ended question, right? But what I will try to do it is I will try to narrow it down with the experience that I have or the business problems that I have solved it, right? If you look at the first point that says consulting environment has no specific flavors. Now, when you go into the IT industry, you will realize that there are two different types of work environment that you have. One is primarily the consulting environment, and second is a product-based environment, right? So there are two types of companies that you will see. One which is primarily into consulting, another is primarily into product-based or product generation kind of a thing. So when you deep dive into the consulting environment, there is no specific kind of a problem that you will get in your hand, because consulting are the companies who generally works with different clients, because that's what they do. They consult. Okay. So the type of problems or the classes of problem that you will see largely depends upon the client, right? What type of client you're serving with. If it is a banking or financial clients, your problems will be different. If you're serving to a client which is into medical science, health science, your problems will be very much different, right? Or if you're dealing with the governments, then your problem will be different. That's why I say that consulting environment has no specific flavors of problem. Right? However, on the other hand, if you see companies which are product based, they have very typical problems to solve. Like, how do I increase my customer lifecycle value? How do I increase my click through ratio? How can I increase my visitors on the website? Or how can I increase my revenue and so forth? So if you go to product based companies, your problem statements are pretty much typical, right? Now, I've been into the consulting firm from the last 10 years. So I have worked on pretty much good flavors of problem statement with traditional machine learning as well as non-traditional machine learning problems as well. So I just tried to list them down for on this particular slide. Started with a recommendation engine for B2B. So B2B stands for business to business, right? And B2C stands for business to customers. So I was working with one of the paints company in India. I won't take the name of it, but it is by far the largest company by the revenue share in Asian market. And they had a very typical problem of on their, so this channel was B2B basically, so business to business. They were selling the products to their customers. Now these customers are not the end customers. These are the retailers, right? These are the larger retailers who sell it to the end customer at the end. So they have a very typical problem saying that they have around 200 products. So this company was selling 200 products, but only 20 or 30 products were a running item. The other 170 items that they had in the portfolio, they were not running. People were not buying those products. Now, of course, company had invested huge amount of money, efforts, time to develop those 170 products. So they wanted to basically identify why these products are not getting running, and is there any way we can solve this? Is there any way they can push the sale forward? So they did talk to their customers. They tried and understand those particular areas where this product fails. But unfortunately, they could not reach to a conclusion saying that why these products are not getting running. Because India is a very large country. We have a different cultures at different places, and painting a house or painting a building has a very specific nature in all our regions. So what they ultimately decided was they will use the data, the transactional data, to identify if there is any pattern or trend or any characteristics that they can identify. So what we did, we primarily understood their 3 years of transactional data. So the entire country of India was divided into 28 regions based on their data set. And then we tried to identify which are the products people generally buy, when they buy, how they buy it. Is there any relationship between the timeline and the product buying pattern and so forth? Then we tried to understand the similarity between the products. Because if I'm buying a product A, and if I know which are similar products I have in my portfolio, I can try and recommend this product. Right? Now, how do I understand if the two products are similar or not? So when you go to any production company, they always have a production, or you can say product roadmap. That's what they call. So product roadmap actually is a very big document which they generally maintain, which says all the properties, characteristics, the formulas of how the product has been built. Right? So we utilized some of the NLP techniques to make sure or to map which two products are very much similar with each other, so that we can go ahead and recommend this product to the buyer when they buy any product. Right? And lastly, we also worked upon the different, you can say, timeline events with the buying pattern. Because in India, if you see, if you go to North, we generally paint house when it's kind of a Diwali or it's kind of a bigger festival. But when you go to South of Indian terrain, we generally paint our houses when it's Pongal. Right? So that's kind of a pattern we observed in the transactional data. And so that we merged it with the logic that we wanted to build. At the end of it, what we did, it helped them actually push more than 20 products off the shelf. So I'm not saying it was a big success in the beginning, but yes, we could actually break the barrier, and out of only 30 products that was running earlier, now they reached to at least 60 products, right? So that was one of the problem segment I primarily worked in the very beginning of my career, identifying and extracting the deduplicates. Now that is one of the very major problem every insurance company has. Okay. What do I mean by deduplicates? Anybody has any idea, by the way, what is deduplicates? Any idea? What do they mean by deduplicates? Anybody have heard this term before? Maybe. So what is deduplicates is a very simple, I can say, uh, simple thing. So let's say my name is Punit, right? So I spell it Punitshh. However, I can also spell my name as Punet. Right? So in the company's database, I have been entered twice, but I'm the same person. Right? So I'll tell you where this problem actually happened. So in Indian market, the insurance industry was boomed after 1998, to be very specific. Right? However, a lot of people before 2000 never had their PAN cards, never had their, you can say, email IDs, never had their phone numbers. Is that right? But when you buy an insurance, you need to provide this demographic information, like what is your address, what is your PIN code, what is your email address, what is your PAN card, and other card, and so forth. So everything uh, mandatory that is required to buy an insurance was not there. So nobody had a PAN card at that point in time. Nobody had email address that point in time. So an insurance industry in India is predominantly governed by the agents. Right? So if you remember, if you try and understand, can I buy directly insurance from LIC? I can't. There are agents. Right? Similarly, if I have to buy a life insurance, I primarily have to contact the agent, and then agent will sell the insurance policy to me. Right? So it is purely an agent-driven market. That's how it works in India. So this company's name was Reliance Insurance. Right? So I worked for that particular company. So their claim department actually identified that their database has a lot of potential deduplicates. So the individual is same, but it has been entered into the database by a variety of the names. Maybe his name is differently spelled. Maybe his address is differently spelled, right? Because of the unavailability of this demographic information. Now, what is the problem with that? Why do we need to, pin down this deduplicates? Because think it from those lines of a claim. If I am the single individual and I have been entered into the database by two different names, can I go and claim two different policies? Yes, no? What do you think? If my records are twicely imported in the database, can I go and claim those two instances? Yes, I can. Because by default, company has given me that policy document. So I can go and claim that. By default, it's a right to the insurer. So that is what this company identified. Their claim department investigated a couple of cases, and they came to a conclusion saying that there are a lot of people who are deduped in our database. Now, think of it on those lines. Now, this when I worked for this client, they had 1.2 million customers. Okay, they had 1.2 million customers. That's a pretty big number. And even if I consider that they have only 2% of deduplicate, it's a pretty big number. So the fraud can be very large. So then this company decided to go via data-driven solution because there is no other alternate way that they had. You can't manually contact 1.2 million customers, right? The efforts will be very large. The time will be very large. So that they thought of doing a data-driven solution on top of it. So what we did primarily, uh, we did some smart indexing on this type of data. Now, what is smart indexing? Right? So, of course, I cannot verify 1.2 million customer against each and every one. I mean, I would need that big or that powerful machine to do that. But even if I get it, it's inefficient approach. So what we did primarily is in insurance, everything can be deduped except one thing. That is your date of birth. Is that correct? Because in insurance, if your date of birth is wrong, then everything gets wrong. I mean, you cannot predict, you cannot quote your insurance value, you cannot quote your premium and so forth. So the one primary assumption we made out of this entire solution was everything can be deduped except your date of birth. So even if I have been entered into the database with two different names, my date of birth will be the same. Right? So what we did, we created a series of smart indexing. So I divided entire 1.2 million data records into 12 different categories or 12 different buckets. Now, what are those buckets? 12 buckets are nothing but the month of the years. So I created 12 buckets from January to December. Now, in every bucket, I created 30 buckets more. What is this 30 buckets? It's are the dates. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to narrow down the search. So if I want to search if my name Punit, how many times it has been entered into the database? The answer can be many times because I can have many people with the name Punit, right? So what I did, we simply divided the buckets into 30 different places. Once it is divided into these buckets, we went to one level further down saying that if my address matches, so if my PIN code matches, if it does not matches, then we go in to check whether my PAN card matches, whether my PAN card doesn't match, whether my email address matches. In email address, if I don't match it, is there any similarity between the two email addresses? Is there any similarity between the phone numbers? So what we did primarily, we created a sequence of 13 filters, or what we call in that particular language was a 13 smart indexes. Okay. So based on that, we could identify if there are two people are similar or not. Okay. Again, it will not give you 100% surety that these two people are same, but it will give you a confidence score saying that model believes that this two individual is 90% same. So then we created a team. So the client created a team of customer service and they called this particular individual. They investigated those cases and we could actually nail down 8% of deduplicate in their actual data set. They were envisioning that it was somewhere around 4 or 5% of deduplicate, but we could actually pin down 8%. Now imagine the 8% of 1.2 million customers. That's a pretty big number, but we could easily do this with the simple use of technology, and they could actually nail down the 8% of deduplicate. The customers were contacted, the customer support service, they investigated the cases and they finally bring it down. So that was one of the use cases that I again worked in, I think back in 2015, if I'm not wrong. Then forecasting of a book sales. So again, this was one of the biggest client in US. Okay. So this particular client is selling a books to the educational institutes. And they primarily wanted to understand if they can forecast the sales of a books so that they can manage their warehouses. Now, the biggest problem in US that they had was a logistic. Moving the books around from one place to another was a very big challenge for them. So what they wanted to understand is if I can forecast how many books will be sold off in which locations, then I can primarily arrange my logistics accordingly very beforehand. I can manage my warehouses, I can manage my quantities, I can manage my stock. Right? So they were selling approximately 20 different types of book. Every types had a different number of books in together. So if I talk about types, then I say technology type. Technology is one type of books. Under technology, they would sell in 100 books, 200 books, types, different numbers of books. That's fine. So we ended up creating 20 different models because every book or every type of a book had a different pattern to follow. You cannot have a blanket solution. So we ended up creating 20 different time series models. And I won't say, I mean, I don't want to give you false information. So it was not a very great successful project because I primarily believe time series projects are generally not successful for a very variety of reasons. One predominant reason is in time series modeling, you generally cannot take account of all the factors that are actually contributing towards your target variable. Now, my target variable here was the sales, but I was just looking at few factors like time, the you can say holiday season in US, the educational pattern, and so forth. But am I taking all the accounts, all the factors into account for modeling? Primarily, no. So that's why the model performance was always, I would say it was acceptable, but it was not great. Okay. Then in the year of 2017, or I can say the 2018 was the era of a chatbots. So of course we had to jump into that. So I worked on dozens of chatbots, including voice-based chatbots. So not only for my company, but I created chatbots for my client as well. So one of them, which I like it very much, is we created an interview bot, which is in the production as well this moment. So what happened was, I mean, this is what I'm talking about, the internal, yeah, interview bot. So a lot of I get a lot of requests for interviews. So in a day, I generally take 5 or 7 interviews. So it's kind of a boring, right? You ask the same question again and again and again and again. And second, it's like a time management. We also have other tasks to do. So can I spend a lot of time in taking interviews only? Probably not. So we ended up creating a voice-based interview bot, which is capable enough to ask you questions on any technology that you want. You just configure it once, and I mean whatever questions you want to feed in, and then bot was intelligent enough to increase the complexity of the questions based on the answers that you have given, right? So it was use of advanced NLP technology and the chatbot framework. So if I ask you a question, what is Java, and if you give me an answer, okay, in the background, the NLP engine will receive this answer. It will compute the similarities, it will compute the linguistic characteristics out of this answer, and then it will make sure that how much this answer matches with the ideal answer. And if it matches beyond 80%, the complexity of the question will be increased in the next question. But if your answer matches maybe less than 80%, then the complexity of the question will remain the same. The next question will be of the same complexity. However, if it goes beyond 60%, below 60%, the complexity will decrease and so forth. So it was a smart engine that we created. Only 2 people worked, me and one of my colleagues. And the good part was everything we used was open source technology, nothing paid, no licenses, nothing. And yes, we have already implemented this in our company. We already sold off to a lot of clients as well. So that was one of the use case I worked. Another is email content extraction and RPA processing. Now, I really feel that the marriage between the NLP and RPA is very, very useful and very effective because NLP can take care of a lot of complex stuff on your ground, and RPA can do and processing in a no time, right? So one of the client we currently work for, they had a requirement saying that yeah, I mean, I guess this also applies to India. If I want to increase my credit limit on my credit card or in my any account, we send an emails, right? That we want to increase the credit limit. Can you increase the credit limit and so forth? So like that particular request, they had 100 different types of requests that the customer support was getting every day. Now this is a mundane task. I mean, that it doesn't require, you can say, brain to increase or decrease. If you get a request, from a customer saying that I want to increase my credit limit, and if his financial supports that request, you can go ahead and just improve the request. That's it. You're not going to imply anything else. So that they had a thought process that can we automate this thing? Well, we said definitely we can. Why can't we? Right. So we developed a two-phase process. One, we developed an NLP engine which primarily reads your email. Once they read the email, they extract the relevant information. Now, what is relevant information? Like what is the name of user, the user ID, the time of request, what was his account number, how much limit does he wants to increase, and so forth. So there was all information we received from the email. So we read it out. We also, now this email goes through some approval chains. So let's say I send a request to improve the increment of my credit limit. Then it will go to one level above in my account manager. My account manager will say approved or reject, right? If it is not approved, not reject, if there is an additional round of investigation is required, then it will go to the another level, like account manager 2. And then he will say approved or reject. So this email was this NLP engine was capable enough to read the entire chain of emails. And it's not only reading the chain of emails, we also have to understand how many people have approved your request, how many people have rejected your request. Is there any additional information mentioned in the email? What is the sentiment or what is the tonality of that particular message? Because based on that, we was feeding the input to the RPA engine. Now, RPA was designed in such a way that whatever email or whatever the NLP engine gives you as an input, you just go and run it. So if NLP engine gives you approved as an input signal, RPA engine will go into the background, go to connect to database, go to the row where the customer ID is mentioned, and it will automatically improve the credit limit with the number that NLP engine has provided. Right? So that was an end-to-end process that we did where we married the advanced NLP mechanism with RPA. That's another type of a problem that I primarily worked. Neural search, this is a recent project that I did in the 2019 end or 2020 beginning. Now, why neural search or what is neural search? The biggest problem in industry today is a lot of business analysts, a lot of domain expert guys, they don't know how to write SQL queries because largely every company's data will be stored in RDBMS. That's the truth. Nobody can deny that. However, this business analyst, this domain experts needs to extract the data time to time to do their study. Okay. But they don't know how to write SQL queries. The SQL queries can be very complex, right? So they have to depend on a lot of IT people. They send a request to generate the data or extract the data. Somebody will come and give you that data, but it is a lot of a time-consuming process. So what we developed as a solution is, I can write any query in plain English. So I can show something like, show me all the transactions for Citibank in last 1 quarter having a transaction value greater than 1 million. That's a plain English statement. So the NLP engine was capable enough to get this query, convert it into an SQL query, and then fire it on the database, and then get the result for you. So that's a neural search. Get any free text English as an input, convert that into a complex SQL query. So what I did, what primarily we built was a solution for this particular thing. It supports more than 20 languages as of this moment. And it is also voice enabled. So you don't have to even type it, just say it and it will be done. We support joins, we support multiple joins query as well. So that's what the neural search is. And the very last one, which I can think of is document similarities, delta and summarization. So a lot of insurance documents, if you see, or a lot of contractual document between the two banks, if you see, they're very big documents, generally 500-page document. Does anybody have time to read those documents? Nobody has that document. Nobody has that time, right? So we created an extractive summarization engine, which is pretty much mature now, which gives you a provision to select the summary length that you want. Do you want 50-word summary? Do you want 500-word summary and so forth? What do I mean by some similarities in delta is, if I give you 2 paragraphs, can you tell me how much similar they are? Now, not only on the context of the syntaxes or semantics or structures, but also in the terms of meaning. So very simple example is this is Apple and this is not Apple. So 99% of the words are similar in both the sentences, but they're opposite of one another. So like that, we use different modelings because the financial terms are very complex. The insurance terms are very complex. So you need to be very matured in terms of getting that similarities. And delta O is simply, if I give you two texts, can you tell me what is the difference between the two texts? Which words are different? What is the contextual it is different? Which words were present in the text one but not in the text two, and so forth. So it's primarily coming from a regulation industry. I don't want to scare you by that words, but yeah, it has a lot of applications in regulatory markets, or I can say buy side of the insurance and so forth. So yeah, this is just some of the use cases that I think would be relevant on this day. So I just picked it up. Well, we are running quite short on time. So is there any quick question, guys, anybody has on any of the use cases primarily? Any quick question? Anybody? Chetan, B2B stands for business to business. So if a company is selling the products to its wholesaler, right, for a distributor, that's a B2B. But when a distributor sells it to the end customer, that's B2C, business to customer, right? Cool. Then the question comes, how does a typical day look like? Now again, this is very subjective question, okay? Because as I primarily said, your day or your activities will primarily differ based on two things. One, which type of company you're working for. Is it a service-based company or is it a product-based company? And the second, very important, is the role that you play. Now, are you just a junior resource, or are you a beginner, or are you a mid-level guy, or somebody like me who manages a team? So I manage a team of 20 people, right? So my responsibilities pretty much differs from the individual who will join. But again, I just wanted to give you a picture that what I do in a day-to-day basis. My generally day starts with correspondence. So what I mean by correspondence is reading and replying to emails. That's pretty much important to do. So these emails can be internal, externals, right? I might have to respond to my internal teams, internal stakeholders, or might have to reply to the external people like vendors, maybe clients, partner, and so forth. I spend around 2 hours every day in reading, researching, and experiment. So 2 hours are definitely parked. Now, in 24 hours, whenever you want to do it, it's your choice. I generally prefer doing it in the early morning hours because those hours are pretty much good, quiet. The business is pretty much controlled in that particular hour. So you can read new topics, you can read about what is happening in the market, which company is doing what, is there any new advancement in the technologies, and so forth. Research primarily talks about, is there any use cases that you are trying to work in the recent time, and you might want to research about what people have done, how they've done it. Because I personally feel in my experience that if you read about people's experience, you learn a lot. Like currently what I'm working on is model management framework. I think I have talked about it earlier as well. So it's good to read how companies like Google manages their models, right? How do they track it? How do they monitor it? Because one, you can get to learn so many things from them because their scale is very high and they have been doing it pretty much good. So one, you can learn out of their experiences. Second, it gives you a lot of directions in which you can go, right? You can say this can work out, that can work out, and you can try different things. And that's what I mean by experiment. So you learn from people's experiences, you learn from people's experiments, what they have done it. You devise your own the research, you devise your own experiments, and then try it out if that works for you. So around 2 hours I spend every day. Right? Code development, I still do it. Even if I manage a team, even if I do a lot of management stuff, I still believe that code, writing a code is still something that you have to do it every day. Okay. Because that will still give you a very high connection with the technology world. So I still spend a lot of time doing a code. Now this code can be for a variety of reasons. So I might do it for my clients. I might do it for building an accelerators for my company. So what is accelerators? Basically, accelerators are those projects those are built for showcasing the capabilities of a company. So we participate in a lot of challenges. We participate in a lot of, you can say, a company level championship or competition in a way. And we also participate in a lot of showcase business where the world level participation happens and then they evaluate your products. So this gives a good marketing or sales kind of a story to the company. So I work in that area as well. We work on POCs and MVP. What is POC? It's proof of concept. What is MVP? Most viable product. So imagine if tomorrow, you read about some quantum technology. So what you primarily think of doing is you build a small POC on a quantum computing, and then you showcase it to your management saying that, okay, this is the new technology in the market, and we believe it is very useful for our clients as well as for our company as a capability building. And we have created a small POC of it because always remember, if you go out with the research paper, people will generally not give you that much attention because there are hundreds of research paper out there. What is very important is how do you implement it? And once you implement it, does it have any business value? Is it solving anybody's problem? Right. So that's what we primarily try to do in building those POCs and MVPs. Now, POC is a very short time project, it's just 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and you just build it. Right. I am heavily engaged into client presentations and demos. So whenever we build some accelerators, whenever we do some project development, I generally take the demos and presentation to the client because developing your solution is a one part, marketing it, or you can say showcasing it to the stakeholders with the appropriate story is another thing. Okay, that's where I do a lot of stuff in presentations. I also am involved in tools and technology evaluations. So what do I mean by that primarily is whenever there is a decision that has to make that which cloud technology provider should we go? Should we go with GCP? Should we go with AWS? Should we go with Azure? That's kind of an evaluation we have to make every day. Should we go with Power BI or should we go with ClickSense? So you have to evaluate tools and technologies on a frequent basis, right? Because it is not only helpful for your company, but it is also helpful for yourself. Because when you are sitting with the people or technology people in the room, you have to discuss about these things. When you talk about solution, your client will ask you, why do you say AWS is good? Or why do you say maybe this model is better than the another one, right? So you have to know the inner workings. You have to have a points to justify the selections that you make. That is where the point of evaluation comes into the play. So you do a detailed study, you do spend a lot of time reading about those technologies and then making some points out of it. Again, self projects, self learning is something I really believe in because what you do in a business hours is still for the company. It might give you the point of learning, but it might but also become a mundane task that you do every day. So you have to have some area, some time that you are just doing it for yourself, right? Self-learning, and also always do a self projects, build your portfolio. That's very important, right? Again, because I'm into management as well, I do spend a lot of time in reports building. So report is of again a management task, has a variety of flavors into it. I don't want to go into it, but that's okay. That's one of the tasks that I have to do it. Again, taking interviews is another task that I have because you want to build a good team, not only for your company but for a client also. So recruitment is one of the major tasks that we do it, and then infrastructure management. So as I said, I am also into that part. So managing infrastructure on cloud, how many servers do we have? Do we need all of them? What is the configurations of those servers? Are we utilizing those servers to the full capacity? Can we save some money by decommissioning some machines? Do we have to add new machines? Do we need GPU? Which GPU should we have? So that kind of decisions, discussions, you have to make it at some point of the time. And that's something, I mean, that's how my day generally looks like, right? It's not that I do every day the same task or in the sequential manner, but yeah, primarily, this is what my day generally takes out. Now, any quick question on any of this? Manpreet says the email use case was an example of NER. NER was just a subset of the actions that we did, right? NER is primarily used only for to identify the entities. But if you look at the use case of email, we wanted to also understand the text that was written inside it. Okay, so NER was used definitely, no doubt about it, but it was not just the NER. NER was just some part of the solution. Prasad says, I didn't get the first point. Which one? The correspondence, Prasad? So the correspondence, it simply means that you start your day by reading the emails and then responding to emails. Because I generally work in three regions, right? North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Now, all of the three has a very different time zones, right? So Asia Pacific market, if I look at it, it is ahead of Indian time. Okay. So they are far early wake ups. They are 2.5 hours away. They're 2.5 hours ahead of Indian time. If I talk about Europe, they're 4 hours behind the Indian time. And if I talk about North American market, they're already 8 hours behind the Indian market, the central time. So the problem is because you work in a different time zones, the emails keep on coming, the correspondence and the communication keeps on happening. So I generally start my day by reading all those emails and replying to the emails if it is required. That's what I meant by that. What is NER? All right, NER stands for Named Entity Recognition. It is one of the application of NLP, that is natural language processing. So what NER does is NER identifies the entities in your text. Now, when I say Chetan is a person, so person is a type of entity, right? As a human, it comes default to us. But how does a machine identifies? How does a machine knows that New York is a place? How does a machine identify that apple is not a fruit, it is a name of company? So that is what we call as a named entity recognition. All right. Where do I read the news from? All right, there are thousands of sources, Prasad. So one of them is a Medium. That's an app. I think I have mentioned it before as well. Medium is definitely one app that I very heavily spend time on every day. I have subscribed to at least 100 newsletters. Now these newsletters are generally coming from different portals, different companies, different research organizations. So why do I need to subscribe to these newsletters? Is because whenever you have a new publication by them, whenever there is a new advancement in the market, they generally prepare the report and send it out. And absolutely free of cost. You don't have to pay any money. So I get every day at least 10 newsletters, right? But do I pay for them? No. It's absolutely free of cost, right? So there are a lot of good peoples in the world who are actually, you know, accommodating all these reports for you. So few of them is, I don't know if you know, K Nuggets is one of them. If you subscribe to Medium newsletter, now Medium is not free actually. So if you want to read stories on Medium's app, there's a $5 fee every month. But I think that's pretty much okay. $5 comes to only 400 rupees a month. So that's pretty okay, I guess. Everybody can afford it. So Medium, K Nuggets, and if I talk about OpenCV is one of the channel. Then Forbes 500 is another channel. Okay. So there are different things. But if you want, I can give you full list as well. Yeah, Chetan, you can go in incognito mode definitely, but I generally read on different devices that I have. It's not always that you're in front of computer and you want to read it, right? You might be traveling, you might be doing something and you have a time. So I generally do it on my mobile as well. Again, having a app is a different altogether part, but yeah, you can do it free of cost as well. What is the state of automation in EDA and ML modeling? How is the future proof? Well, definitely there are a lot of advancement are happening in terms of automation in modeling, but I would still say it is just a one way to do it. And I don't think it will ever take a central stage. Because even if you do a model building process in automation, you will need a human to evaluate it, no matter how much automation you do. Because I'm self-building that model management framework, so I know it. I have built up an engine who can actually generate models out of the blue sky. That's okay, you can do it. But in order to evaluate, I mean, you need a human. So it will never take a central stage for sure, but yes, it is helpful in a lot of other ways. I can build a lot of, you can say, citizen data scientists. I can train a lot of people in a no time. So yeah, that has a lot of advantages as well. Don't worry, Prasad. We will come to those points. It is already in the slides. All right. Let's see what are the teams or stakeholders you will work with. So once you become a data scientist or once you get into that role, how many different people, how many different teams, or how many different roles you will be working with. So I primarily work with client teams that can be end users, that can be business users, that can be technology managers, or that can be legal and compliance teams. Right. So I always, I mean, I frequently have conversations with these teams. Now, these teams are not my company's team. This is primarily the client's team, right? So if Citibank is my client, then Citibank's end user, Citibank's business managers, Citibank's legal team, and so forth. So that is the one team that I predominantly work for. Sales and pre-sales. Now this is a Synchron management team. So every company will have a salesperson. Every company will have a pre-sales person. So you always talk to them because they are the guys who are going to get a customers for you. Now, when they get a customer for you, it is your job that you demo your capabilities to them. So you go ahead and talk to them in cases of what your company has done it in the past. What are the capabilities do you have? Or which areas you can work for? And then you try to talk them out saying that what are your business problems? How can you solve those business problems and so forth? So that's how I talk with sales and pre-sales a lot of time. Prospects, of course, that's what I just said, that whenever anyone from sales team brings on the person on the board for demo, it's a prospect actually, it's not a client. So we demo them everything and then we talk them out what are their problems and so forth. Technology managers across the board, because as a data science solutions, once you build it, it's not the you can say I mean it's not the only part of the solution, right? It was just a small part of the solution in the bigger ecosystem. Okay. So you have to talk with different technology people that how can you embed this data science solution into the larger ecosystem. So you have to talk with Java people, you have to talk with front end people, you have to talk to cloud resources and so forth. Because you have to take this solution that you have built and embed it into the general ecosystem. Okay. Then you talk to DevOps engineer. Why DevOps engineer? Because DevOps engineer are the people who will actually do the deployment for you, right? In a lot of companies, they have advantage of having a DevOps team. A lot of companies cannot afford DevOps people, so generally a data scientist will have to do the deployment. So that's why we have to talk to DevOps people. Data engineers, Python developers, data science team, very common stuff. Because when you get some problem statement, you build a team. So when you build a team, you need to have a Python developers, you need to have a data engineers. So you assemble together, you design the solution strategies and so forth. Business analysts are one of the key people we always talk with, because when you get a problem statement, it's preemptively important to understand the business, preemptively important to understand how that particular business problem has to work in domain. And there is no other good guys than the business analyst who can help you with that. Because business analyst generally knows in and out about the domain. So they can pretty much help you out with any problems, any queries that you have around the business problem, right? Junior resources. So when you hire someone new, you go and talk to them, make them comfortable, right? You tell them what to do, what not to do, and so forth. Recruitment team, yes, that's one of my job. I talk to recruitment team a lot of quite frequently, because you have to design the roles for your company. You have to design what kind of skill set do you want in the person that is going to be hired? What kind of an experience do you need? What kind of an exposure do you need? So you need to sit down with the recruitment team. You need to design those roles. You need to give them a detailed roles and responsibilities that you're going to hire for, right? And third party vendors, as I said, we evaluate a lot of technologies that we might want to use it in our solutions. So a lot of companies, a lot of vendors will contact our sales team, our compliance team, and they'll come back to you because you're the technology guy. So they will come back to you and tell you, okay, this is the vendor that we have got. Can we use it? Can we use this tool into our solution? Can we sell this tool to our client? So you have to look at their demos. You have to ask relevant questions. You have to understand how their tools work. You have to evaluate whether this tool will will do a good to your solution or not. Is it suitable? Is it relevant? And so forth. Right? So those are the general teams of people I work day in, day out with. So yeah, any questions with that? Why somebody is here, why somebody is not here? What do we mean by any rules that you see here? Any doubts, any questions? What people that you will work for tomorrow that you once you step in as a data scientist? Okay. So Chetan says, what is the difference between the roles of big data engineers and DevOps? All right. That's a very big difference actually. Big data engineers primarily work on a distributed frameworks like Hadoop, like Spark, like Teradata. Their primarily responsibility is to manage the data on those clusters. Their primary responsibility is to manage the applications that is built on these distributed clusters, right? However, the DevOps engineers or the DevOps team is primarily the people who have a skill set about integration. Now, what I mean by integration? Now, integration means how can you merge or how can you make two different technology talk with each other? Now, maybe simple example if I can give you. How do I make Python application talk with Java? Any idea? How can I do that? How can I pass my input of Python to the Java? And how can I Java pass the output to Python program? That's what we call as an integration. Because try and understand, your data science solution will be in Python. By and large, it will be in Python. The backend engine of any application will be in Java. Is that right? The data storage will be either RDBMS or either it will be NoSQL data storage. But how can you make all these three technologies talk with each other? Because they work very differently. Their frameworks are very different. Their architecture is very different. That is where this DevOps engineers comes into the play. They design the strategy that how these two applications should talk with each other. What kind of a web service API should we have? What kind of protocols should we use? Should we go ahead and deploy it on the cloud? Should we go ahead and deploy it on the premises? Are you getting my point? So DevOps engineers are pretty much skilled resources in doing these integrations. They exactly know how to make two systems talk with each other. So does that give you a good idea, Chetan and Manpreet? Sound Java knowledge is required to become a big data engineer. I say yes, Java is required for, I don't know, big data engineer. I don't think Java is predominantly required because when it was initial stages in the market, Java was required because the Hadoop framework was built on Java. But if I talk about in today's time, nobody use Hadoop. Hadoop is purely outdated. No company is using Hadoop any longer. Everybody has moved to Spark. But if I talk about Spark, you don't need Java knowledge. Spark can be done in Scala. Spark can be done in Python as well, or Spark can be utilized in R as well. So I'm not very much sure if Java is required. I don't think Java would be more or less required either for role. DevOps is definitely, you don't need Java for sure because DevOps is more to do with web service protocols, agile frameworks, or you can say cloud frameworks and those stuff. You don't need Java for that. Does that help, Chetan? Now the question comes, somebody was asking that how can you become a competitive enough, or how can you build your skill set? I think Prasad was asking. So this is the answers. How I built my career, how I built my capabilities, or how do I manage to build my team's capability? Okay. You have to subscribe to a large number of newsletters. That's what I said in the beginning. You need to subscribe to those newsletters because manually you can't go and search for information every day. That's impossible. You cannot go on Google and search something which you don't know. So that is why you need to subscribe to the large number of newsletters which can give you information about what is happening around you. Right? If you need, I can share the list of newsletters that I am subscribed to with your coordinator, and they can share it with you. That's absolutely not a problem. I have already noted it down. Yeah, I will do that. No worries. I have already made a list because in other lectures also I have shared it earlier. But yes, that is something you'll have to do. Again, why? Again, it's a free of cost. Nobody is asking you for any payment. It's free of cost. Second, you need to go and attend the data science or related events. Now, before COVID, it was not possible for everybody because sadly, in India, we don't have a lot of events related to data science. Unfortunately, we don't have so many events. There are events which generally happens, but not on a larger scale. So after COVID, these events now started happening online. So you have to attend those events. You have to attend those conferences. Just don't, I mean, you are not there to speak something. You're not there to contribute. You're just there to listen. All right. Listen to people's experience, listen what people have done it in their domains. Listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't know if you have access to podcasts. I'm sure everybody has. Listen to those podcasts as well. I mean, that's a pretty great source of information. A lot of people fails to realize the impact of those free technologies, but indeed it has a great impact. Right? So try and read that stuff as well. You have to read a lot of books for sure. I mean, that's one of my hobby. You have to read books that talks about the trends and the technologies of tomorrow world. Okay, how it's going to look like, what are the people going towards, technologies and so forth. So that is something you have to do it, right? And experiment and experiment. There's no other way around. uh, in today's time, a lot of people want short success, right? That's unfortunately not going to happen. The other day I got a message on LinkedIn. There was a female, I don't want to take a name, and that female pinged me saying that how can I grab the highest package in data science? And I was shocked. So I don't know this lady. This lady just pinged me out of nowhere. And she asked me, how can I get the highest package? And I was like, wow, you can't get a highest package just by asking for it, right? You need to showcase your worth. So that's why I said it has to be the experiment. Reading is one part, but if you just read and don't experiment or don't implement, it is no useful. Okay, so you have to experiment enough. As I said, experiment and fail, something that you have to do it. Now, this is something I do with my team generally. A lot of companies that you will work for have no option of failing. If you fail 2, 3 times, they will kick you out of it. But that's unfortunate scenario that we have. But I think it is important that we should promote a culture of failure as well, right? If you allow somebody to fail, then only they will experiment. If you don't allow them to fail, they will do what is in the orthodox book, right? So that is why I always tell my team, don't be afraid, just go ahead and do it. That there are only two things that are going to happen. One, you will succeed, otherwise you will fail. But when you will fail, you will learn a lot of things. But I have a potential to go back to my management saying that why did they fail? So that's okay. But that's what I do generally. I generally have a weekly meetings with my team, right? So what we do in this weekly meeting is we generally discuss topics. Nowadays, because we are working from home, it's generally more frequent. So you just talk about on any latest topic. So I have a 20-member team. So it is fairly possible those anybody in this 20 people have heard new terminology somewhere. Maybe they read it in the email, they read it on the newsletters, they read it somewhere in the newspaper, they read it on the maybe podcast. So we generally discuss it in the group. Like quantum computing was the recent topic that we discussed. I know quantum computing is not new. That's it's pretty old concept now. But we are trying to discuss how quantum computing can be married with data science, right? So that was the topics that we have been discussing. Why these discussions are important? Again, you get to know new terminologies, new concepts, new topics, and you also get to be on the edge of the latest innovations. You have to share learnings, experiences, and learn materials. In data science, I think what is predominantly important is you be part of community. Okay. There are a lot of communities on LinkedIn. There are a lot of communities on other channels as well. But LinkedIn is what I prefer because it's professional network. So be part of that community. A lot of groups are available in on LinkedIn. Just be part of that group because a lot of people will share their learnings. A lot of people will talk about a lot of things on that platform. Even if you don't know that, it's okay. You will get to learn a lot of new technologies. And because try and understand, data science is the most dynamic industry in today's time. Every day there is something new, every single day. I don't know if you guys follow Google. They recently did their yearly event and they launched three large NLP models. I don't know if you guys know about it. So I attended that event and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal is the word. I mean, the amount of maturity they have gathered in NLP models are tremendous. GPT, there is a higher version of GPT released by Chinese university a day before yesterday. It is trained on humongous 6 trillion parameters. You can imagine how crazy that is. So the point I'm saying all of this thing is it is very dynamic. Every day there is something new. Humanly, it's very difficult to, you can say, track on it. So that's why you need people, group, community that talks about it, right? So that's why I said that you have to be part of it. I think what is important in Indian market or Indian company is I'm fortunate enough that I work for Cinecron where we have this kind of an environment. But you have to respect one thing is not everybody is same or not everybody is master in everything. I might be good in communication. I might not be good in mathematics. That's okay. You have to respect that part. Somebody in my team is pretty much good in Python, but they're not very much good with statistics. But okay, I allow them to grow. I allow them to learn. But if you start differentiating those stuff in the very beginning, it will be very difficult to manage that team. So why I'm giving you here, tomorrow you will be manager at some point in time, right? Tomorrow you will lead the team. We all live in social environment. So my point of saying is you have to respect one thing for sure is not everybody has same level of mastery, right? So you have to keep those relationships that particularly well. So that is how you even able you are giving a free space to somebody to grow. Okay, if you respect that somebody is not good in something, they will go and try to learn it. And that's what I have witnessed over the period of time. So but but again, broader points, what I generally do to keep myself acquainted with the new technologies, uh, and what I generally prefer doing it for my team as well. So they're also on the line. They also are top of the edge at every moment. Right? Pretty much moving forward, what are the most rewarding or the frustrating points do I have? Chetan, yes, you need cloud computing knowledge. If you want to, I'm not saying it's mandatory. Okay. I'm not saying it's mandatory, but if you want to differentiate yourself from the crowd, I would say it is good to have. It's good to know how cloud works. What are the services you have in the cloud? How can you use those cloud services in your day-to-day work? How can you integrate it with Python? How it can you convert it into a working solution? Yes, for sure you need it then. But again, as I said, it's not mandatory to have, but if you have it, it will give you a added benefit in the recruitment style. Does that answer your question? Of course, you need a programming language. Of course, you need it. Yes. Python, or the more language you know, it's better. You need to know Unix, you need to know SQL as well. Cloud doesn't work on programming language. I'm sorry, my friend. I'm not sure how much you are exposed to cloud technologies, but cloud technologies does not have any programming language. They have services. So you work on those services. Again, you are just throwing throwing a words of technologies. I'm not sure how much you are exposed to with that particular frameworks, but those are the frameworks. Those doesn't work on programming language. Okay. As Prasad very well said, every portal or every cloud has their free courses. You can go and maybe just register yourself. Or even one good thing is you can go to Udemy. I think there are courses available at 500 rupees, 800 rupees, 1000 rupees. That will give you a basic idea of what is cloud. Okay. Are AWS certification useful? Now, Prasad, that actually depends which certification you're doing. Every cloud have a different level of certification, but largely what I'm simply saying is, if you have a certification, that will give you an added advantage for sure. Because I'll be honest, in today's recruitment time, when I want to hire someone, if that guy has a knowledge of cloud, I'll hire him immediately. So that gives you an added marks, right? But again, you don't have to be pro in the very beginning. You can, as I said, the free courses. But yes, if you want to have it, please go ahead and do it. But remember one thing, it's not free of cost, right? Those certifications are not free. They are heavily charged fees certifications. Does it help, Prasad? All right, cool. Now, quickly, what are some good or bad days that we have as a data scientist or in the journey that you will also see it very soon? And I'm sure you will relate to what I'm going to say now. Every day is thrilling. Every day is like a roller coaster, right? Because I work in consultancy or I work in consulting business, that's why every day is pretty much new for me. Every day we talk to new clients. Every day we talk to the different problem statements with the same client. So it's like you're having a new day every day. Why data science? Again, it's endless possibilities. As I said, sky is the limit. You can develop any solutions you can think of, developing or generating solutions for anything that you possibly like. So it's endless possibilities. NLP is opening a doors for tremendous amount of solutions. Computer vision is opening door for a lot of things. So that's why I say it's endless possibilities. That's why it's most rewarding thing. Uh, I think what the time we are living in is the most exciting time for mankind, because there are things happening which were possibly, nobody even thought about it 20 years back, right? What are the events that are happening in today's time I were remotely not even possible. So that's why I say it's the most exciting time in the mankind and you're part of it. And why it is most exciting? Because I think data science is contributing to a very larger extent. AI/ML is contributing to the larger extent, and you are part of that community. So that's why it's like, you feel proud about it. Data scientist or as a data science professional, you are always getting an opportunity to be on the top of the game, because I think data science is the profession. By profession, it is on top of the list. If you look at all other professions, right? In the IT, I'm saying satisfaction of contributing towards companies and clients growth and success. I mean, that is you can't compare that with anything else. When you develop a data science solution or a data driven solution, when you give it to client, and when they start generating money out of it, when they start generating revenue out of it, or when they start saying that the problem has been actually solved using what you build, that satisfaction is a different level. But I really get to see that closely. And I think that is something, the highest reward that you can get out of your journey. And I think on the other side, the respect that you get, the perspective of a people changes the moment they realize that you are a data science professional, you're a machine learning professional. So I have seen that pretty much very frequently. that people's viewpoint gets changed immediately. They will give you a lot of respect. I'm not saying that other professions are not respected or other professions are not looked at with that view, but again, we all know the world of data science has been hyped by a lot of bubbles, and that bubble will give you that respect for sure. Right. So that is, I think, most rewarding thing. I have experienced it in my journey so far. Now let's talk about some of the frustrating points, and I think that will keep on happening every day. The more in the world of data science, AI, ML, there is more misunderstanding than actual understanding. A lot of people thinks a lot of people thinks about a lot of things in the very weird direction. Okay, I talk to a lot of people in interviews. I talk to a lot of people in my conversation, and I generally laugh when they talk about something because it's not about they don't know it. I am fine they don't know it, but I have a major problem when you start talking about the misunderstanding of it, right? And I've seen it to the greater depth, right? So a lot of people have a lot of misunderstanding about the field. A lot of people have a lot of misunderstanding about the technology, how it works, and actually it has a lot of ripple effects, right? So that's why I think that is the most frustrating point. You have to spend a lot of time first making them understand what is right, what is wrong, and then you have to start your work. So that is something more frustrating. A lot of people think we are magician, so they think that okay, if I give you this data, you will give me solution by tomorrow, right? A lot of people will give you some dummy data and they will expect you to generate a wonderful solution out of it. A lot of people will give you 5 lines of rows or a data, and they will expect you to generate a Google search engine kind of a data solution, right? So a lot of people thinks that we are magician or a data scientist is a magician. So that is a frustrating point. I have been talking a lot about it, saying that we are not magician, right? So don't look at it with that way. In industry, sadly, a lot of people believe that even if you don't give a data, you can still build the solution out of it. So it's a frustrating point. So I always tell them that data-driven solutions cannot be built without data. A lot of people will be hesitant to share the data. A lot of the times they don't even have the data, but they still want to generate the solution. And that's a reality. I'm not kidding. Um, so that is a frustrating point to see that everybody wants to do ML. Every company you go and talk with them, they want to build the chatbots. Everybody wants to do something in ML, but they don't know what data to use. And they don't even know whether they have the data or not. So that is a frustrating point. I think another frustrating point is a lot of people think if I employ some data scientist, they will solve all my problems. Okay, they will solve all my problems. Let me be honest, guys. Data science is not the solution for all your problems. Not every problem can be solved using a data science. You have to understand which problems can be solved using data science and which cannot be. All right. So that is something again of a very highly frustrated point in everyday's life. Big data is not data science. So again, in industry, if you go and talk to a lot of people, I think more majority of the people will tell you that big data and data science is one of the same thing. They will use interchangeably. But for your understanding, please get this in your mind very clearly. Big data is nothing to do with data science. They're two different domains, they're two different technologies, they're two different ballgame altogether, right? But a lot of senior folks, a lot of senior level executives doesn't understand this. And that is more frustrating. And lastly, which I have seen over the period of time is a lot of people have implemented if else statements and they say they have implemented machine learning model or they have done AI. And trust me, I'm not kidding. I've seen it in the happening. Okay. So if you say that if you write a complex rules like if this then predict this, if this then predict this, if you keep on writing a complex if and else statement, trust me guys, you are nowhere near to the data science. All right. A lot of companies I have seen claiming that they have done data science, and when you talk to them what they have done, you will be surprised to know that they have done nothing more than writing some complex rule engines, right? So again, it's very frustrating to see in that point in time. But again, it's just some of them. So any questions anybody has on maybe what is written here? Anybody has any questions? There's just one last slide that we have to cover, and then we are pretty much good on that part. But okay. Yes, Manpreet, I will do that. Don't worry. Now, the last part that I want to talk about is what are the generally skill set that any company will expect in you when they want to hire you as a data scientist. Okay. Earlier, hiring a data scientist was easy because there were less people in the domain. Nowadays, hiring a data scientist is a major challenge. Okay, so because we have a huge crowd in the same domain. So, but what I feel being an interviewer, being a recruiter for a long amount of time now, these are the skill set that I will personally, want to see in a candidate when they come for an interview. One, coding skills are at most important, especially Python. You have to be a master of a Python language. And I'm not kidding when I use word master. Okay. You have to be master of a Python language. There is no alternative. And when I say Python, it's not only print statement or loops or that thing. Python in and out. You should know how to write classes. You should know how to write inheritances. You should know how to do NumPy complex operations. You should know how pandas work. What are the operations under pandas? How does a group by work? What are the operations related to group by? You can do it in pandas. How does a lock and ilock works? I will give you some scenarios. You have to tell me the code and how will you do it. So that's why Python is utmost important. There is no alternative, right? If you know more languages than Python, it is definitely a good point. Like SQL, Unix, shell scripting, Scala, it's all added benefit, right? Inner working of algorithms and basic statistics is another important skill set that you should have. I mean, nobody's asking you the formula here, but you should at least know how does an algorithm works. If I ask you what is the difference between a decision tree and a random forest, you should be able to tell me a detailed differences, right? You should be able to tell me the inner workings of it, right? And yes, the basic statistics is very, very important. Again, no, you can say fancy statistics I'm talking about, are very basic statistics. What is mean, more, median, how to interpret those numbers. If I give you a visualization, if I give you a chart of these numbers, are you able to interpret those numbers? Are you able to make some sense out of it, right? That is a skill set that I generally look for in any data scientist. You should know a cloud infrastructure. Again, if you see, I'm just saying word knowledge. You should have some knowledge about the cloud infrastructure, how it works, what are the services in cloud, how can you leverage those cloud services? Because understand one thing, guys, industry is going towards cloud, and cloud is inevitable, whether we like it, whether we don't like it, right? So today or tomorrow, your client and your company is going to switch to cloud. They've already switched it, but they will expect every employee that they're working in technology division, they should know what is cloud, how it works, right? So that is something you should know it. And yes, you should know web development as well. You should know how Django works. You should know how Flask work. You should have at least built a couple of applications out of yourself. Why it is important? Again, if you build a machine learning model, how will you make it available for rest of the world? Generally using API. And how can you write APIs? You can write APIs in those web development. So web development in Python is good to have, right? You have a basic but clear understanding of neural nets. Again, I'm not saying it is must to have, but I think you should have the very, very basic understanding of how neural network works. That will give you again an added advantage of the other people. Okay. Knowledge about NLP is must. Okay, I'm saying must. So you should know what is natural language processing. You should know what are the components of NLP. You should know what are the applications of NLP, right? I'm not asking you to go deep dive and get a mastery in it. I'm simply saying just basics is fine. All right. Basic is very fine. Hands-on with code repository management. What is code repository management? GitHub, if you guys know, right? You should know what is GitHub. You should be able to work with GitHub. You should know what are the commands in GitHub. Because when you step in industry tomorrow, nobody will tell you what is GitHub. Nobody will tell you how to get the code from the GitHub repository. They'll just say clone this repository. You should know what is cloning. And if you tell at that point in time you don't know what is cloning, it's a bad phase to have, I think. So you should know what is the code repository, how it works, what are the commands. Again, am I asking you to invest money and learn this? No, it is absolutely free of cost. Git is absolutely open source technology. You can go ahead, read it, learn it, experiment it without any investment. The only investment is your time. Okay. Second, I think the last point which I feel I should see in every candidate is they should know more tools. The more tools you know, it's better. Okay. Something like if you know Power BI, good. If you know ClickSense, pretty good. If you know maybe any other tools that you can use it in data science journey, pretty good. I mean, it's not bad to have it. All right. So the more you know, it's better. If you don't know any tool, that is also fine. Nobody's going to kill you for that. But it's just that if you know it, it will again give you that added benefit. All right. And what are the behavioral traits that you should have it? Very important thing I think I will look into my data scientist is the patience and the persistence. Why patience? Because you will not get succeeded in the first attempt, not even second, not even third, right? So you need to have a patience not to lose out on it, and you need persistence to keep it going. Okay. Data science or data driven solutions are not easy, right? They take time, they take a lot of patience, they take a lot of time to build it. So you need to have that patience, you need to have that persistence in your behavior that will keep you going, right? As I said, you will have a lot of frustrating moments in the discussions with client. Can you lash out on them? You cannot, right? So you have to be quite polite and patient about it. Second, I think, which is very important, I feel a quality a data scientist should have is a self-motivated and a self-starter, right? In industry, generally, when you get hired as a data science professional, they expect you to tell them a solution. They expect you to tell them what needs to be done. But if you come in as an employee who needs direction, then I think it's pretty bad place to have, right? Because a lot of, as I said, people will look at you from a different perspective. If you say you're a data science professional, they look at it from a very different angle. And they will expect you to tell them, okay, this is right, this is wrong, this is what you should do it, this is how you should do it. But how can you do that if you're only self-motivated, if you're only self-starter? Nobody want, I mean, you don't need somebody to tell you. You don't need somebody to guide you. You don't need somebody to direct you, or you don't need somebody to, supervise you to do something. Then only you'll be able to do it. Right? So you be self-starter, self-motivated. You need to have excellent communication skill. You should be outspoken and risk taker. Now, I can't emphasize enough to have a good communication skill. And when I say good, or when I say excellent, it has to be excellent, right? And I don't, and the reason is very predominant behind this particular part is, see guys, as I said, you are going to talk to a lot of people in a data science journey. When you get onboarded, you will be the central stage. Okay. So you will talk to clients, you will talk to internal stakeholders, you will talk to your teams and so forth. And if you don't communicate well, trust me, you are screwed big time. Okay. When you give demos to the clients, you have to be well communicated. All right. And when I say communication, it's all type of communication, written, verbal, oral, whatever you want to call it. Right? You need to know how to write good emails. You need to know how to formulate your sentences. You need to know how can you build a story out of anything that is given to you, right? Because I have seen it personally. Like, you will get to know that there is a demo in next 2 minutes. You are not aware. Okay. In 2 minutes, you have to set up your mind in such a way that you're demoing something to the prospect, right? So that much, you can say, flexibility, you should get it, right? Why outspoken? If you don't speak, if you don't communicate, if you don't start the conversations in the data science field, it was very difficult. Clients, stakeholders, vendors, they will expect you to talk. And if you don't talk well, I mean, that's pretty, again, not good place. Risk taker, of course, you have to take a risk. You have to do experimentation. Doing an experimentation is a risk, right? So you have to take those calculated risks. What will happen if I do this? What will happen if I run this model? What will happen if I don't run this model? What will happen if I do that? It's fine. Take a risk. That's okay. But if you're a fearful person, then it's pretty difficult. Something I feel, again, which I like to see in my candidate is accountability and ownership. Okay. You need to have a courage. You need to have a, you know, a framework inside yourself says that if something happens good, you will take account and you will take an ownership of it. But if tomorrow something goes bad, if tomorrow something goes worst, you should have a courage to take that accountability. You should come forward and say that yes, I did it. Right? Tomorrow, if a company rolls out any new opportunity saying that client have given us this problem statement, you should go ahead and take it for yourself, saying that yes, I will do it. You see, the more exposure you get, the more better you will get. That's it. That's how it's simple formula is. If you stay in your shell, if you stay in your comfort zone, it's difficult. You have to go out, you have to take those risks, you have to take those tasks, and that's fine if you fail. Nobody's going to kill you, right? But you will learn a lot of things. You will learn damn lot of things, right? And I think which is last, I think again it's very important is you have to be very much open to learn, relearn, erase, and learn again. This process, this cycle will keep on happening all the day life. Every day, this is the same going to happen. You learn something, then you realize, okay, you learned it something wrong. You relearn it, then you realize everything was wrong. You erase it completely. You learn it again, and so forth. So this chain will keep on revolving every single time. And you cannot say that I don't want to learn, or you cannot say I have learned enough, right? There is no enough. So as I said, at the NLP example that I was giving, now Google and this Chinese company, they launched a new Google models. Can I say I don't want to learn it? No, I cannot say that, because this might be the potential solution for tomorrow's problem that I'm going to get. So you have to learn it. You have to understand how it works. If AWS tomorrow comes out with new services in their cloud, can I say I cannot learn it? No, you cannot say that. You have to learn it. You have to understand it, because that might be a useful tool for your solution. So that's why I said learn, relearn, erase, and again learn. That's how it works, right? I think that was the last slide that I had. Maybe anybody has any question for me before I give a last piece of advice. But any questions, anybody? There are many algorithms in data science, which are the most used ones in remembering in and out techniques. I think Shruti, I'm sorry, I can give you some things on that part. Is one, get your hands very clear on tree-based algorithms, because industries primarily work on tree-based algorithms. If you talk about the conventional machine learning techniques, if I talk about NLP, then you should know what is embeddings, what is contextual embeddings. You should know how the similarities can be identified, what is NER. Those are very simplistic things, but if you keep track on those part, I think you will cover the larger ground. Neural networks, Prasad. Neural nets is neural networks, artificial neural network. I'm sure you might have heard the term before. Chetan, don't worry, I will share all these links with your coordinator and they can share it with you. Prasad, I mean, do you need more description on neural nets? I mean, I think you might have heard it before. So neural networks is the most, I think, advanced version of deep learning. That's what we call, right? Deep learning. So neural network is nothing but a mimic of a human brain. So if you look at your human brain, if you try to open it, you will see a lot of neurons, right? I mean, again, I don't want to go into the biology of this thing, but human brain generally have close to 1 billion neurons, and every neuron is connected to one another. So when you touch any hot item, your brain sends out the signal to your hand saying that you need to remove your hand, right? So that is how the functionality generally works in human brain. So back in 1990s, uh, Jeffrey Hinton is the father of neural networks. He basically had an idea that can I mimic this human behavior or human brain onto the programming language? Is it possible? Then he invented the deep learning. So what we do now is we create the different neurons in frameworks like TensorFlow, Keras, PyTorch, Cafe, right? And we create a large number of neurons, all right? And then every neuron is connected to one another. We pass our input data set like features that we have. And then this neuron learns the relationship of these data features that we have passed. And then it will generate the response. Again, it's a non-conventional machine learning technique. So we call it as a deep learning. And it is generally known as artificial neural networks. So that is why the word artificial is used. So artificial neural network. Okay, you are artificially creating the human brain. Chetan, again, you are throwing some random words. It has nothing to do with deep learning. All right. Feature extraction is still, you can do it in any machine learning as well. All right, I think that's pretty much good, guys, that I wanted to cover for today. I hope your 1.5 hour was worth Sunday morning. If you guys have any question, please feel free to ask. As an actionable item from my side, I will share all the links to your coordinator and then they can get it back to you. I think piece of advice, I think Manpreet, I've already covered in those things, but I'll again just summarize it maybe if you want. Okay. One, practice enough. There is no alternative, right? Do practice. Keep practicing new stuff. Keep practicing your Python skills. Keep practicing your machine learning skills. Read a lot. There is again no alternative. You have to read a lot. Build your project portfolio. Go to GitHub repository. Build your project portfolio. Okay. Because if you go to recruiter tomorrow, they will not believe what you say. They will only believe what you do, right? So you will have to showcase what you have done, right? I think that's pretty much good that you can do. It will cover most of the ground. And again, I mean, stick to basics. Okay, sticks to basics. Don't. I always say this in a on a laughter side is, don't try to be Iron Man. Okay, where you are doing everything at one step, one time. We are humans. Okay, we can't do that. We are not Superman. We are not Iron Man. Nothing of that comes to us. We are humans. What we can do is take a one topic, do a mastery, move on to the next topic. Do one thing at a time, but do it on a good note. Okay, do it on a good note. If you try to do everything at one point in time, trust me, you will end up nowhere. Okay. However, if you try to set up a small targets, that okay, next 2 weeks I will master pandas. Next 2 weeks I will master decision tree. Next 2 weeks I will read about NLP. Try to set up those small targets, because small targets are very easy to achieve, and it will first of all not discourage you if you don't achieve it. Okay, so I mean that's what I did when I started back in 2020 or 2012. So set up small targets, have a small wins. When you accumulate all the small wins, you will never realize when you achieved the bigger trophy, right? So I think it's primarily very important to do that. Okay, don't become an Iron Man. Don't try to become an Iron Man also. We are human. Let's stick to it. Stick to basics. Try to do one thing at a time and move on. Right? I hope this helps. Thank you so much, Gaurav Manpreet, for those kind words. Thank you so much. I really hope I could put up some perspective in your mind. I hope I could help in some ways, right? And I hope your I hope your Sunday morning was worth. And again, guys, if you have any question about anything related to your career, maybe to any tools, any technologies, feel free to reach out to Grey Atom Coordinator. They can reach out to me, or else you already have my LinkedIn profile. So please go ahead. That's all. That's good to know, Gaurav. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks
Thanks
a
a
lot,
lot,
guys.
Puneet. It was an amazing session in the morning, and I think all the guys have also liked it. I'd love everyone to let us know through feedback how much they loved the session, and we'll definitely share Puneet. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good Sunday. Please take care of yourselves. Bye bye.